All right, let's go round 2 on finding a slope-intercept equation. Today is going to take a little bit more brain space. You're going to have to do a little bit more math. We're going to be given the slope and a point, and then later given 2 points. And we're going to kind of go through the same process every time. So if you master the first part, the second part is going to be easy breezy. So in part A, we're going to find the equation, and again, we're going for y equals mx plus or minus b. And I always tell my kids at the high school that this is a two-piece puzzle. So anyone can do a two-piece puzzle. You need to find the slope, and you need to find the y-intercept. And so yesterday we found the slope and y-intercept because they were given. So that's one of the ways that could happen. Or sometimes we had to use the counting, rise over run, or sometimes we used the formula to find it, which was y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So really we're just building on that. So let's take a look at what we're going to do. It says finding a slope-intercept equation given the slope and a point on the line. So we're going to know the slope and an x and a y that works in the equation. So let's see. In this first example, I know that it goes through 1, 2 with a slope of 3. So I already know one of my two puzzle pieces. My slope is 3. So here is the process, and really watch this and make sense of it because you're going to do this multiple times. Here's how we go about finding b. If you start with the equation y equals mx plus b, you plug in the parts that you know. This is an x value, a y value, and the m value. So in place of the y, I put my 2. In place of the m, I put my 3. In place of the x, I put my 1. And now I can solve for b, kind of going through the process we learned earlier just by solving. 3 times 1 is 3. To get the b alone, I have to minus the 3 to the other side. So I end up here by combining these with a b value of negative 1. And I already knew, because it was given, I had a slope value of 3. So my equation is y equals m, which is 3, x, and then my b value. So that is the process you're going to use over and over and over. This process right here. So let's try it again. So I'm going through this point. Here's an x and a y with a slope of 4. There's my m. So y equals mx plus b. For the y, I put in my 3. For the m, I'm putting in a 4 this time. And for the x, I'm putting in a negative 2. Now I go through the same exact process. I already know one of my two puzzle pieces. M is 4. I simply need to find out what b is, and then I'll be ready to write my equation. So here, the 4 times negative 2 becomes a negative 8. So to get the b alone, I'll need to add 8 to both sides. So b is going to equal 11. So if b is 11 and m is 4, then my slope-intercept equation goes y equals mx plus b. Alrighty, let's keep rolling. Same thing. Find the slope-intercept equation through this x, this y, with a slope of 1/2. So we're not going to panic. We're just going to write down a fraction. That's not a big deal with slope because it just means I would go up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2. So fractions really aren't that problematic. I have to find b. I'm going to find it the same exact way. I use my y equals mx plus b formation. For the y, I put in a 5. For the m, I put in a 1/2. And for the x, I put in a negative 4. Now you have a calculator, so use it. Don't freak out. You're going to multiply these two, and a 1/2 times negative 4 is going to give you negative 2. To get the b alone, I need to move the negative 2, so I add 2 to both sides, and b equals 7. So if m equals 1/2 and b equals 7, then my equation is y equals m x, and then my b value. So the same process over and over and over again. Every single time you're going to just be plugging in what you know for y, m, and x in order to go through this process to find the b. Up here, I put in what I knew for y, m, and x, went through this process to be able to find the b. So then in part B, we're going to take it one step further because we're still finding a slope-intercept equation. So we're still going for y equals mx plus b, but now we're going to be given 2 points on the line, which means we are not going to be given the slope, but with 2 points, we're going to have to use y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 to find it. And then we're going to go ahead and find b in the same way we did in these 3 examples. So let's give that a try. Okay, so here I have 2 points. I'm going to call this x1, y1, x2, y2. I have not been given the slope. So my 2-piece puzzle, both pieces are currently a mystery. So to find my slope, I'm going to use my formula. I'm going to do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I'm going to get 8 over 4, which reduces to 2. So now I have found half of my 2-piece puzzle. To find b, I'm going to do the exact same thing I did before, and the beauty is you get to choose the point. So you're going to choose what you use. Choose to use, and then when I look at these 2 options, I'm going to choose to use 1 and 2 as my x and y simply because they look easier to work with. So I have my x, my y, and my m. And I'm going back to the work that I did at the beginning of this worksheet in part A. I'm going to have my y equals mx plus b starting format. I'm going to put in my y value from either of the points. It doesn't matter. I just chose to use this one because it looked easier. My m is what I solved for. My x is over here, the x coordinate of this point, so that's a 1. And I'm doing the same math as before. This turns into 2. To get rid of the 2, I need to subtract it. So this one ends up with a b value of 0, which is totally legit. So then when I go to write my equation, I'll have y equals mx, and then I'm not going to write plus 0 because that mathematically doesn't make any sense. So I'm just going to quit at y equals 2x. Let's do it again. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to find my slope using the formula where the second point and here is my first point. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I get 4 over 2 reduces to 2. So I know the slope is 2. One of my 2 puzzle pieces is complete. To find that b value, I get to choose to use. So what am I going to pick? I actually feel like 1, 1 would be easier. So I'm going to choose to use 1, 1. So that's my x, that's my y. So now I have an x, a y, and an m. So I do that math where I'm plugging in my y, which is 1, my m, which is 2, and then my x, which is also 1. And I'm going to do a little bit of math. 1 equals 2 plus b. Taking away that 2, b equals negative 1. So if m is 2 and b is negative 1, I have my 2 puzzle pieces. I write y equals my m, x, and then my b value. Alrighty, practically experts. Let's do one more and then you can be on your own. So I have 2 points. So to get my first mystery puzzle piece, I need to do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So be really careful because I get a negative 9 over, this turns into a negative 3, and that will reduce to 3. So you have to be a little careful because that can get messy when you have negative numbers. So I know one of my two puzzle pieces. I know that m is 3. Now, what am I going to choose to use? Well, I have a negative 1, 7, or a 2 and a 16. Even though 2 and 16 is kind of big, I'm going to do that instead of using negative 1. So I'm just choosing that because I think it might be easier to not have negatives. So I choose to use 2, 16 for my x and my y. So now I know my y, m, x, and I can find b. So I'm going to find my b same way as I have in every single problem. So my y equals my m times my x plus b. Solving for that, I'm going to get 16 equals 6 plus b. To get that 6 out of there, I'm moving it over by subtraction, and b is 10. So knowing that, I can write my equation. Y equals m from up here, x, and then my b, plus 10. And you might be wondering, like, what if you guess the wrong point? Well, you can't guess the wrong point. Let's see if I can cram in some work here. If I had chosen to use this as my x and y, I'd still have to use this m equals 3. So I would have had y equals x plus b. I would have had 7 equals negative 3 plus b. I would have had to add 3, and I would have ended up with b equals 10 again. So it doesn't matter which point you use. That's why I keep saying you can choose, and I always try to choose the one that will be easier. Smaller numbers, positive numbers, whatever the case might be. All right, you have IXLs again today. Last one's for the week. The rest of the week is going to be some worksheets. So get a start on those and then have your best score by, I think it's 8 o'clock, maybe 10 o'clock on Friday. Check the weekly plan. Have a great day, guys. Bye.